Yo, what's up, gamers? It's me, the Duck, who builds and stuff, probably, I'm not very sure. But anyways, I'm here in the Christmas collab. I'm one of the hosts, in case you have been living under a rock. But basically, me, Tfor1, and Jolllyy Appleman have been working on the second part of the Christmas collab. At the moment, it's unnamed. But anyway, I'm working on this, and I wasn't able to record my build process, but what I could do is show you guys how I actually made some of the art I made, like this mountain, for example, and how I was able to make these optimized trees in only 5 objects. Could do 3 objects, but I decided to go a little bit more detailed, but I'll show you guys how to make those in this video. But yeah, so pretty much, the way I do my art, which is different for everyone, alright, you don't have to do it my way, but this is how I've been doing it for a long time. Not that optimized, just want to warn you. But pretty much, I draw out a little photo in like Microsoft Paint, other drawing software you have available. I draw out a shape, right, and then I draw out the highlights. As you can see, I have some of the highlights and shading. Like this is a shading part, this is a shading part, and some of the lighting parts, the lighter parts, are used as highlights for example, the moon right here. That's something to put into account, is when you're making your art, you have to make sure you have your shading, like, account for lighting. So you need to have proper shading, proper highlights, to get the proper shape you're going for, right? So yeah, anyway, I draw it out in Microsoft Paint, and I grab the image reference mod, which you can find on Geode. There's a mod available called image reference image, I'm pretty sure it's called. But anyways, you save your Microsoft Paint document as a PNG or whatever the image reference uses. You take any object. I would recommend using these small objects because they don't really get in your way as you're building. So essentially, you can use this to select any picture. Like, for example, I'll put my icon in here. This is a reference image of my icon. This isn't an object that you can see in game. This is just for the editor. But essentially, you can use this to build the shape over it. So it's pretty much like tracing. So I build the outline, and it depends on what you want to do for the inside. Personally, I use these little round objects, these little circles, but scaled up. You can warp it to however you want. Like if you want to get a clean edge of the shape, you can just put, you can put the circle along the edge just to cover all the white space. That's how I do it. And as you can see, in this first copy, this is the first copy, this isn't even the final, but you can see I made a little layering error here, and they're both on the same layer. The outline and the circles are on the same layer, and this is a little tip I want to give everyone, because this is a mistake I made in the very beginning, is these circle objects, I recommend using circle objects. But I wouldn't recommend using the ones in the particle tab. These particle tab objects are very, very buggy with layers. Like for example, I could have a circle object here, and then I could use the other circle object here, the ones that don't pulse. Make sure to get that right. So these are 2 circle objects. I'm gonna put these on B5. I'm going to get a regular block with just a regular black block. I'm going to put it also on B5, and you can see that if I put these circles on the same Z layer, one of the circles is behind it, and one of the circles is in front. And mind you, these squares are all on -7, and both of these circles are on 1. This circle should be in front of it, but it's not. So that's why I would avoid using the particle objects, and instead replace it with this circle object found in the glow tab. way better for layering, and it's just more convenient in general. And going into the trees here that I was talking about earlier, these are actually very simple to make. Anyone can make them, really. It requires little to no skill. All you do is, it depends on how you want this detailed or not, but it usually averages around 3 to 5 objects. But yeah, you go into the particle section, you'll find this block right here, which is supposed to resemble, I think, a drip or something. I don't know personally what it is at all, still. But I looked at it and I was like, hey, that's a pretty good tree shape for an evergreen tree. So I took that, and I wanted to fill up the holes in the objects, so I just took some of these circle these circle objects, and I just, boom, covered them. Same thing with this, I just took a normal block, and boom, there's a trunk. That's all I did. Very simple build, but effective. If you want to do things from far away and you don't want them too detailed, this is a perfect way of implementing evergreen trees in your level. But yeah, let's go on to the next tip. This is where I'll get into how I made these foreground trees with a little bit of snow on them. Now, I will admit, I did make the snow a bit unoptimized, so I'm pretty sure we ended up scrapping it at the end of the day, and we just ended up leaving the actual trees with the branches. But I am still going to show you guys how I made it. So these trees, actually, I was in call with another good creator friend of mine, Hack695, some of you guys may know him, but he helped me out with some of the shading and like how to do it. So I built a little shape here. You can see these are made out of just basic blocks, but I wanted to have the effect of the trunk of the tree to be a little bit thicker than the top. So whenever you're working with trees, something I would recommend, instead of just doing that and calling it a day, if you want to go a little bit more realistic, you can do just a slight rotation. Slight rotation, and then make the top meet exactly like that. And that is how you get the effect of the trunk being thicker. And if you get something like this, you know, you could just patch that up with like a block or something, thin it out, boom, boom, fixed. So if you want to work around that, very easy fix, but that's how I wanted the effect to look. And when it comes to shading, if I get these blocks out of the way, you can see these are all actually spikes. So my creator friend Hack695 told me that if you take some of these half spikes, put them on no touch, warp them a little bit, do a little bit of that magic, you can make it so it's a little bit more slanted on one side. But anyways, I did that. I did one side of the shading a bit lighter than the default color of this, and I made this slightly darker than the default color. I think I made them by like 10, so this would be on 30, so this is 40, and they're basically all just by 10s. These little cuts in the wood, if you can see that, it's very slight change, but this actually is the same exact color and shading as this tree here. So if we put these together, if we put these two spikes on the tree, you could see you get the effect of a little chip or something to add more texture to the tree. And all you have to do is just take your spike, copy paste, rotate, boom. That's it. And as for the branches, same thing as the tree trunk. I just did the slant thing, made them meet at the top, and I did the same thing for these. It's quite literally just doing the same thing, but a little bit smaller. And if you want to have a little bit more detail, add a second one right there. Boom. So that's all it is. It's very simple but effective way to make trees. And after that, you can see we have a huge change here, thanks to Tfor1. He did a lot in this section here. But what I did is you can actually see I added as a structure some logs, or like kind of like a fence log thing, right? So these are very easy to make. All you do, and this is actually surprisingly object efficient. I did the same shading effect as I did for the trees. Super simple, did exact same thing. But for the top, if I take the pads off, and the extra snow, you can see I did a little top here, the top of the log. So how I did that is I'll get a warped block, stretch it out a little bit, and get one of those circle objects in the glow section I was talking about earlier. Get that, warp it, lock it, make sure the sides are perfectly aligned, warp it down a little bit, bring it up, and you can see you get the effect of a cylinder. And you'll notice on the bottom here, which I didn't do here because it's not visible, but if you are doing one that's visible at the bottom, I would recommend copying the circle and then bringing it down a few Z layers, or a whole other Z layer if it's on different layers, and you get the effect of a bottom half. So they're both bottom half, but this one's on top and this one's at the back. So it's essentially being in front, acting like it's at an angle, and you're seeing the top of it, which is really nice. It has a very nice effect. So for the example, I'm just gonna make these a little bit darker. And as you can see here, just to be a little bit more object effective or efficient, I used these that are found in the saw blade section. You can use any of these, it doesn't really matter, depends on what you're going for really. But I used one of these in the saw blade section, edit special, disable so it's not moving whatsoever, shrink it down and kind of match it to the circle at the top here. And this one you can make a little bit darker, bring it up if it's too, oh, yeah, okay. So I use that, make sure it's not on the blending group, so make sure you have it on the proper color channel, make it a bit darker, and you can see I got the same exact effect as I did here, and it's acting like the pattern that you usually see in logs in person. So it's a really nice effect, very object efficient. Very nice, looks very good, and I just did the same thing but in a smaller version here. And all I did here is just grab some default blocks, warped them, and made it look like it's a fence structure. So that's what I did. It looks very nice. Another piece of art I did, which I think has some very useful tips if you're going into art style, is this snowman here. Looks really good from. Shut up! So I'm gonna show how I did some of the things I did in the snowman. So if you're looking at this at first glance, you'll notice that the snowballs of the snowman, each part of the body is looking a little bit more spherical, more than 2D. And the way I did that's actually fairly simple. I got one of these almost white objects. I did this to match the nighttime scene, so it's not clear white, so it's not too bright. But I grabbed that color, made it slightly darker than what I was going for, and I kept this a brighter version. So you can see this is at x2. That's way brighter than this, and this gives the effect that the outside of the circle is essentially a shadow, giving it the spherical look. You can portray this effect quite literally into objects. You can just get a piece of glow, make it brighter than the ball, make this a slightly darker, and you get the effect of a sphere. So that's a very cool tip I got to try out in the snowman here. Another thing that I have a build tip for is this scarf here, and I did a very similar tip I did with the log. I used the exact same kind of swirly pieces, slightly different though. They're in the same section, I believe, or no, I don't think so. They're all used in this particle section, which I know I said has weird layering issues, but if you have to use it, you'll use it. But I used this object here, once again warped it down to have it look like it's going around the snowman's neck, have the top, have the head over it, and have the body under it, so it gets the effect that there's a scarf around his head, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's pretty much all the useful build tips I have for the snowman here. So that is how I made my art in this Christmas collab. I just want to say real quick, thank you guys so much for watching this entire video. If you did watch it the full way through, I really appreciate it. We really hope you enjoyed the final result of the level coming out this month, if you're watching when this comes out. I'm really excited for this. We have very talented creators in this, and yeah, it's been real fun talking to all these creators, learning from them, and just, you know, building on it in general was a blast. So we really hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.